Hey y'all, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and here we do all things spooky, but specifically in the month of February, we are doing nothing but reading stories that you guys have sent in to me. So please, if you have any stories you would like for me to read, check out that description below because you will find where and how to do that, my other social medias, and my podcast episodes. So please go check that out. And without further ado, let's get into these stories. I've been watching your channel for quite some time now. I've had many stories to tell, but we'll stick to a few that have stuck with me. The first being when I was in middle school, a good friend of our family unalived himself. Right before he did it, he called our house around 1 a.m. We were all sleeping, but the phone ringing was in my dream, and in the dream I answered it, but no one was there. The next morning, we all got the news about him. After this, I started having weird things happen. Alarm clocks being turned off in the middle of the night, stereos being unplugged while I was asleep, I slept with music on, thermostat getting changed, all things. As the years passed, things escalated. When I was 19, I was at my sister's house and we were standing in her kitchen when all of a sudden the cupboard flew open and a container of Nesquik and a can of chili flew out and landed at my feet. Both of us just stood there shocked. I was used to things being thrown at me, but up until that point, my sister had never seen it. It was here when we started calling whatever this was my ghost. Many people have been witnesses to my ghost doing things. The second incident, I was sitting on the couch talking to my friend's mom. I was around 25. As we were sitting there talking, a phone was sitting on the coffee table in front of me, and I felt something hit my lap. When I look down, this phone is now in my lap. My friend's mom looks at me and says, "Well, I guess your ghost wants you to make a call." She lately watched my phone fly off the table into my lap. This last incident hardened me about 7 years ago now. I was in a dark room and my daughter was laying next to me. I sat up to take a Snapchat and I saw my daughter in the photo and quickly turned around to see if she'd woken up. She had not. In fact, she was still laying down. So I studied the picture further to see the face. I was looking at what most definitely was not her. I tried debunking it and still to this day I have no explanation. I'm gonna send pictures as well. I still believe my ghost follows me. Too many things happen and I just can't explain it. He doesn't feel evil, but whatever's in that picture gives me terrible vibes. I have not seen it since. So I'm gonna insert that picture here. I haven't looked at it yet either, so I'll just put like in words my thoughts because I have no idea yet. That's terrifying though. All of those stories are really creepy. It does sound like you definitely have an attachment. Whatever this is really attached to you specifically. You can always do a banishment to get rid of it, or you could just ignore it as well. It really just depends on your level of comfortability. I have spirits that have been attached to me that I've just kind of left alone. I've had ones that I've banished. So it's really just if it's making you uncomfortable, if it's making your life really like difficult, I wouldn't keep it around, but it's up to you. All right, next story. I found you on here and started watching these videos. It should be interesting to note that the other night when I was watching one of your videos, I got kicked out of YouTube 3 different times. The video also froze up a couple of times, and I kept trying to restart the video and even tried a different video. Someone apparently didn't want me to watch you. I figured out who it was later. Who? This brings me to my main point. I have had paranormal and unexplainable experiences since I was a child. I'm now 42. I've had a lot of experiences and I'm going to share my main ones with you. Story number 1. When I was around 11 or 12, I used to lay under my covers and read with a flashlight. My bedroom was upstairs and my parents were downstairs. For context, it was the 3 of us in the house. Anyways, I'm laying under my covers reading, and all of a sudden I feel the foot of my bed lift up, like someone just picked up the end of my bed and was holding it. Immediately, I thought it was my dad. He'd snuck upstairs to mess with me, and I said, "Dad, put my bed down." No response. So I pulled the blanket down, shined the flashlight down to the end of the bed, and there is nothing there. But my bed is still in the air. I scream. My bed slams down. Bam! Hits the hardwood floor. I'm sitting on my bed in shock, wondering what the hell just happened. My dad comes up the stairs saying, "What in the hell are you doing? What was that noise?" But when he saw I was scared, he calmed down and asked me what happened. When I told him, he had no idea what to say. He couldn't say it was my imagination because he heard my imagination from downstairs. This was from my childhood, but now I want to talk about the things that have happened where I currently live. I feel like I should mention that I live in Iowa. It's a little acreage about 2 miles on the outskirts of a little town. Immediately I start feeling and hearing and seeing things. Now I don't live in Appalachia, but I still follow the same rules for the most part. It started out with a few weird things, like hearing weird things that sounded like a wild animal, like birds and such, but not quite. It sounded more like a human trying to imitate a bird. Now, as I said, I've dealt with this paranormal stuff my whole life, so I've learned to just ignore things, but I can also be confrontational, especially if something is messing with my family, especially my kids. I've become a mama bear and will literally fight anything. Since we've lived here, I've seen and heard things. My kids and husband have seen and heard things. I'm just going to break down the experiences at this house. Me being outside in our shed at 6 a.m. after my husband had already left for work and hearing something clear as day say, "Hey, Dawn." I freeze, don't move for a few minutes, then slowly peek outside the shed. Of course, nothing is there. I then immediately go into the house. The voice sounded like how a bird sounds when it talks. My daughters have both seen a woman with a half face. My son has seen this gray humanoid looking thing you describe in your videos, and it should be interesting to note that I've heard other stories of people in my area seeing the same things. My husband one time walked around our house and saw a black lab pass him, then reached the back deck and our dog was laying on the deck sleeping. There's no way that dog could have ran all the way around the house and got up to the deck before my husband got there without seeing him. My husband has also heard me call for him. I've heard my kids call for me, and my kids have heard me call for them. Now I'm pagan, so I decided to do a protection around the perimeter of the property. I did this, and the very next day after my husband went to work, I went outside to the shed again, and there was a freshly dead black bird just laying in front of the door. And I mean freshly dead. I moved the bird from in front of the shed and immediately went into the house. I feel like it helps a little bit, but if I'm being honest, I don't have much experience dealing with this specific thing, so I'm just kind of working off of what I know. I know I don't live on Navajo land because it's Iowa, so I know there aren't any walkers, but it's very walker-esque. I always say that whatever Iowa's version of walkers are, we go through periods of things being calm and then ramping up again. We get tapping on our doors and windows, just little things like that, and they more annoy me than scare me. I do have more experiences and stories, but this is all I'm going to share for now. Again, I'm sorry for how long this is, but I do hope you see it and read it on your channel, and I will send other stories if you want me to. Absolutely. So you said you put up protections around the perimeter of your property. I would put up iron stakes, just like maybe in each 4 corners of the property. That'll help a bunch. As far as so I noticed 2 things happening with your shed. I would put something outside of that shed, maybe line the windows from the inside with black salt as well, just to keep that safe. You could also line your doors and windows inside of your house with black salt. But I would definitely try the iron stakes because I don't like that. I don't like that that's happening. So. All right, next story. I want to start this off by saying that I've always believed in ghosts because I grew up in a haunted house when I was a kid, and that's a different story. The story takes place in 2020 when I was a freshman in college. I moved to the city, Pittsburgh, and lived in the dorms of my college. Since it was the year 2020, there were limited people who could live on campus, and there was nothing even happening on campus because of COVID. My roommate and I, who literally just met, spent a lot of time in our dorm and got to know each other very quickly. We also made friends with everyone else on the floor because, again, there was nothing to do. I swear all of this is important. Now to the spooky stuff. It all started kind of small. My roommate and I would just brush it off. We had a wooden wardrobe, and we would hear light tapping in them. Weird, but whatever. Then one night something made my roommate wake up. She looked across the room to me and I was asleep. She scanned the room and on the small desk mirror I had, she saw a shadow walking toward the front of the room. She rolled over and covered her head. She didn't tell me until the morning. We always felt watched in a weird way. Another night I was coming home from my mom's and my roommate called me. We had coffee mugs on our microwave and 2 of the 4 fell over and only the handles broke. She was nowhere near them. The tapping continued and we asked the girls on our floor if they experienced it too, but they didn't. There were other things that we experienced that I don't really remember. We did go to a witchy type store that was near our campus and we got crystals and the owner recommended that we use the sage spray. So we did that and it was pretty calm. Now fast forward to after winter break. Almost everyone on our floor moved out, so it was pretty empty. One thing we used to do with our neighbors was knock on the walls to try to talk in Morse code. It was fun to do. Well, we no longer had neighbors, and one night we were falling asleep and we heard knocking on the wall. The wall next to my bed, of course. We both asked each other who knocked, and we realized what happened, and we just accepted it and said, okay, and went to bed. We would ghost hunt and listen to spirit boxes with headphones, so we would get some answers. One day we got led to a floor that was unoccupied for the semester, and all the doors were locked except one, the room we were led to. When we got there, we got no more responses and just went back to our room. Again, we would have small things happen around our room, but we would just brush it off. I swear this is almost done, just a few more crazy things happened. One night, my roommate, our friend, and I were all hanging out and probably watching scary movies like always and decided to go to bed. Our friend practically lived in our dorm and slept on the floor all the time. My roommate and I were almost asleep until our friend goes, "Guys, why did that light just go out?" Or something like that. My roommate had a salt rock lamp next to her bed that we kept on all the time to feel better about our ghostly friend. To turn it off, it had one of those wheel twisty things that clicked. My roommate and I heard the click, but didn't want to accept reality until our friend spoke. Our room is pitch black. My roommate goes to the salt lamp and twists the wheel. It clicks and turns back on. There is no way bumping that or anything could have turned it off. The last major thing that happened actually happened midday. My roommates, some friends, and I were all in the room chatting and doing homework when something fell and slammed against my roommate's dresser. We look over. It was the lint roller that was on my dresser, probably 3 feet away, that was now laying next to my roommate's dresser. We tried to debunk it by putting it back and slamming our door, but it didn't move. We tried smacking it over ourselves, but it wouldn't have hit the other dresser without force. There were crazy things that happened, and no one would wrap their heads around it. I continued to live in those dorms after the year, but on different floors, and never had experiences like that again. I know this is long, but I've had so much more to fit. I'm so sorry. I do enjoy watching your videos and really enjoy the evening postings. Thank you for reading this on your YouTube. And again, I'm so sorry this is so long. It really wasn't that long. And also, I love long stories. You guys don't need to apologize. So it definitely sounds like something was in that room, huh? Especially if you lived in other places in that building and it didn't happen and the other people weren't experiencing it. What the heck happened in that room to attract that energy is what I want to know. That's really creepy. The knocking that you and your friends used to do happening after they left, that's awful. I don't like that. All right, next story. To preface this document of my paranormal experiences, I would like to add some context to the home. I moved into it in 2021, although I don't know what year exactly the old woman who used to live here died of cause I don't know of in my parents' bedroom. I feel a horrible presence in that room, and I hate going in there alone even though I have to every day. It's where the bathroom in the home is. My first paranormal experience in my current home. As I said, in 2021, I had just moved into my new home and had no bed, no lights, and no door for around a week. So every night I would lay down on my mattress and face the dark hallway. I couldn't find the bravery in me to face the wall, so this was really the only choice. Every night for a week, it would stare at me as I was laying on my mattress. It was a palish, lanky creature that looked like the rake or a walker and would stand in a crouched position every night. I would keep eye contact with it every night until I eventually fell asleep. It was equally terrifying every time. The white figure. Hi, Pete. What are you doing? Here, come here. You want to sit with me? As I was watching a movie while home alone, I glanced outside right behind the red curtain on our backyard's porch. There stood a white hooded figure just watching me. Absolutely mortified, I slowly walked towards both of the back doors, which I left wide open to get some fresh air and quickly shut and locked them. At this point, due to the lack of curtains, I maintained eye contact, so I knew if it got closer or left. It slowly disappeared from behind the red curtain. At that point, I was so confused and terrified. I tried to rationalize that it was just the back of the curtain being white, but the next day I went outside to check, and in fact, the curtains were completely red on that side. My shaking bed. You're shaking the tripod. I should call this story my shaking tripod pizza. What are you doing? Yeah. You just wanted a scritch. Okay. During the period of time from when I was 6 to 7, my bed would rapidly tremble and shake every single night. For a bit of context, my sister would sometimes hide in my closet making strange noises, although she said it wasn't her. But I know this wasn't her, as I would check underneath my bed every night and she was never there. Even after I got off my bed, it would continue shaking, as if there was an earthquake, although the floor stayed still. I would run to my mom and she would console me and return me to my bed to tuck me in. The shaking didn't happen after the second time she would put me to bed, but it would continue the next night for a never-ending cycle. Recently, the shaking has continued at my new home, but worse, as it shakes, I will hear soft laughing, scratching, and groaning. Ooh. My great-grandmother's home. In around 2015, my great-grandmother passed away in her home. Fast forward to 2022, my great-grandfather passed away in his bedroom. After his passing, my nana moved into that home. To celebrate them moving in, they held a party outside. When me and my sister were swimming, I heard a loud but gentle voice while I was deep in the pool to get out now. I quickly swam out in a panic. I didn't tell anyone until we went inside to eat around an hour later. I have no idea what told me to get out, but I don't think it was a bad entity. In that home, I think there's an evil entity, though, and I have had my hair pulled and seen dark figures. Other paranormal happenings. Very often I get my shoulders grabbed, hair pulled, and hear humming. I also have woken up with lots of bruises a few times. The entity that mimics my family. It was around 1 p.m., about 2 hours before my dad wakes up after his graveyard shift at work. I hear him calling me from the dining room. My name, come here, as well as him watching a video on his phone, which he usually does when eating. I come out of my room, then open the dog's baby gate and walk from the hallway to the kitchen, where I finally reach the dining room. To silence. He was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, I have a feeling of extreme dread. The shadows in the room began to act strange. I quickly run through the rooms and try to open the baby gate. It got stuck, which it often does because it's quite old and it's used so often. I start scrambling to get this gate open as I heard a small and quiet footstep behind me. I get it open and slam it quickly behind me. I then rush to my dad's room to see him soundly sleeping. Quickly, I run to my bedroom and I glance to the kitchen from the hallway and see my dog staring into the dining room. I slam my bedroom door behind me and then jump onto my bed in absolute terror. Since then, I have learned my lesson to not answer someone calling me, although the calling keeps getting closer to my room. The most common voice I'll hear is my mother's. I've heard her a total of 3 times when she's not home, 2 of those occasions being when no one else is home. The voice sounds so close to her own, except slightly distorted. My name keeps getting called when no one is in my room. My desk in my room is on a wall that is opposite to my bed, and when I'm working at it, I'm not facing my bed. I'll hear a strange voice from under my bed calling my name, almost like it wants me to come in. But in the past few times it's been in my ear, so close it would have been pressed up against my body. I know you always say not to acknowledge entities or let them know that you're afraid of them, but every time I fly out of my chair and run out of my room. I think whatever's doing it enjoys frightening me. It definitely does, so if you can ignore it, definitely ignore it. It becomes a fun little game for them because they're mean. The kitchen window. In my kitchen, there is a window directly above the sink. This window directly faces my neighbor's glass doors and windows and has always had parted curtains so I can always see into their home. One night when cleaning some dishes in the sink, I see a whitish gray figure peek at me through the curtains. It looked lanky and inhuman. Its long thin hands were gripping the curtain as it stared straight into my eyes. It bent its neck to get a better look at me. It stared at me for around a minute before it moved out of sight. As fast as I could, I ran to my bedroom and realized I hadn't filled the bottles yet. I knew I couldn't go back alone, so I ran to my mom to ask her if she would come with me and help me fill up the bottles. I know I freaked her out because I had to have had a mortified look at the moment. Later that night, before I told her goodnight, I explained what happened. I was so happy and relieved that she believed me, but now I see that she probably just wanted me to feel a little bit better. That night in my dream, I was performing the same act step by step from the night before, washing that bottle. Except this time the creature rushed at me in a ghostly manner and ripped my soul out of my body. Then I woke up. I couldn't go back to sleep that night. I know dreams reflect our day-to-day experiences, but I felt like my dream was trying to tell me something and I don't know what. It sounds like that dream was a fear manifestation, but it could have been a warning that whatever you saw did not have good intentions as well. The evening after the dream, I was walking from the kitchen and suddenly I saw the creature peeking at me from the bathtub in the bathroom, which is directly across from the kitchen. It quickly disappeared into the darkness again. Side note, I remember the day after I saw this thing and I watched my neighbor's chandelier light fixture fall and shatter to the floor through the window. Although I don't know if it was all related. It was very strange as it happened in the same spot. That definitely sounds related. The next dream was more recently than the other. In my dream, I was looking out the kitchen window just like the last one, but my sister was picking oranges from our tree, which is a few feet from the window. Then she suddenly began acting strange, and the overall atmosphere began to change. She started morphing into this creature from the neighbor's home and pressed her hands on the glass and screamed so loudly I can still imagine it. From the dreams and the sightings, I'm terrified of being near that window. To end this document off, I would like to ask you for help, Morgan. I'm absolutely terrified of being in the home and need your advice. I've tried banishing this entity and other stuff as well, but the activity keeps getting worse and I'm afraid of seeing the pale window creature again. It's my worst fear at this point, so please, if you can give me any advice or actions that I can take, please inform me. Thank you so much for taking the time to read all of this. So it sounds to me like that might be something involving your neighbors. Seems like it might be in your neighbor's house and like you're seeing it, so it's like toying with you. I think the best thing you can do is cleanse your space and set up protections. So do a cleansing of your house, and I have videos on that. And then when you're done, line the windows and doors with black salt and just try to not look outside of that window. Just ignore it as best as you can. Ignore literally everything. And I think that'll help. Anyway, that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you tomorrow.